I had owned this river property for years, long before the new development appeared beyond the trees. For me, this quiet stretch of water was the one place where I could escape the noise of everyday life. That morning, I set up my tent near the river and started a small campfire in the designated fire ring. I thought I was going to spend a weekend fishing, reading, and enjoying the land I legally owned. Then I heard an engine coming down the dirt road. A black SUV with the words HOA Patrol painted across the side rolled toward my campsite. A man stepped out wearing a tan uniform and a black vest that said HOA Patrol. I had never seen it before, but the way he walked toward my campsite made it clear he expected me to obey him. He pointed toward my tent and told me I was not allowed to camp there. I looked around at my own property and asked him a simple question. Who exactly gave you permission to tell me that? The patrol officer told me the HOA had rules about camping near the river. I reminded him that the riverfront parcel was mine, and his HOA rules did not automatically control property they didn't own. He insisted that the HOA had jurisdiction over the entire area because the access road connected to their neighborhood. That was the moment I realized this wasn't really about my tent. It was about how much control they thought they had. I walked over to property marker and showed him the boundary line recorded with my land documents. His confident expression changed when he realized the campsite was clearly on my side of the property. Instead of backing down, he told me the HOA could still enforce its rules because the river was considered a community resource. I knew that claim sounded wrong, so I decided to stop arguing and start checking the paperwork. That night, I opened every deed, survey, and county record I could find. What I discovered next would turn a simple camping dispute into a legal fight that could bring the entire HOA down. The documents confirmed what I already suspected. My river parcel was separately deeded and had never been transferred to the HOA. But I also discovered something much more interesting about the association itself. The HOA's original declaration had strict boundaries, and the river property wasn't included anywhere inside them. Their patrol officer had been trying to enforce rules on land that wasn't under their authority. The next morning, the HOA patrol SUV returned. This time, I was ready with copies of my deed, survey, and the county records proving exactly where my property began and ended. I handed Mark the paperwork and asked him to show me the document that gave the HOA authority over my land. He flipped through the pages, but he couldn't produce one. For the first time, Mark stopped acting like he was in charge. He told me he would have to check with the HOA board, and I told him that was exactly what I planned to do too. I attended the next HOA board meeting and calmly presented the facts. The board president insisted the river had always been treated as a community amenity, but I asked her to show me where the law or recorded documents said that. I placed the county survey on the screen and pointed directly to my parcel. The room went silent when everyone realized the HOA's own recorded boundary map excluded my riverfront property. The president argued that the HOA had been maintaining the access road for years and therefore had rights to control the entire area. I explained that maintaining a road didn't magically transfer ownership of neighboring private land. I left that meeting knowing the HOA wasn't going to voluntarily admit it had crossed the line. So I decided to look deeper into the association's legal status and how it had been operating. What I found in the public records was the final piece of the puzzle. The HOA had serious administrative problems, and I realized there was a legal process that could challenge its existence entirely. The following morning, I went straight to the county records office to verify everything myself. I wasn't interested in rumors anymore. I wanted certified records that could stand up to scrutiny. The record showed the HOA's legal filings were outdated, and its governing documents contained serious inconsistencies. More importantly, the association's recorded boundaries didn't match the territory its board claimed to control. I spent the next few days organizing every record and comparing the documents line by line. The more evidence I gathered, the clearer it became that the HOA had been operating far beyond the authority granted by its own documents. A few days later, Mark came back to the river. This time, he didn't immediately order me to leave. He simply asked whether I had spoken to the HOA board. I told him I had, and that I had also reviewed the county records concerning the HOA. Mark looked at the folder in my hands and suddenly seemed much less certain about the situation. I showed him the certified records and explained that I was preparing a formal complaint about the HOA's unauthorized enforcement activities. I also told him I intended to challenge the association's legal standing through the proper county process. I filed the paperwork through the appropriate county channels and requested a formal review of the HOA's status and authority. For the first time, the dispute was no longer happening on a dirt road. It was officially on the record. The review uncovered exactly what my records had suggested. The HOA had been enforcing rules outside its recorded boundaries. The county also questioned whether the association had maintained its required legal filings correctly. A few weeks later, the final decision arrived. The HOA's authority was formally revoked through the legal process, and the association was ordered to cease its unauthorized enforcement activities. I went back to the river, set up my tent, and finally enjoyed the peace I had been fighting to protect. The HOA patrol was gone, the rules they had invented were gone, and my private river was finally mine to enjoy again. If you enjoyed this HOA story, make sure to subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from.